In the last video, I mentioned that if your scene exceeds 2 megabytes, that you may not be able to email it to me. Don't email it to me, but you'll probably be able to upload it to the Game Institute upload section. You can email me and ask how to do that if that's the case. All these scenes are going to be different sizes. So find out how big it is first and then email me. Let me know how big it is and we'll figure out how you can get that to me. But most likely it's probably going to go to the upload section. I'd like to get the max file and all the scene parts if at all possible so I can take a closer look. But you are going to need a render as well. And that's where we're going to start off in this scene or in this video. And here's my scene once again. We're going to go over the basic rendering settings real quick. We're going to go to our render scene dialog here. You'll need to set to single if you just want a single render, or range if you want a turnaround. And if you're going to make a turnaround, you're probably going to want 1 to 100 as your frame base, not 0, which is the default. Otherwise it'll look like it sticks for a frame. If you're using any of my lighting and camera rigs, you're going to want 1 to 100 here. But that's only if you're making a turnaround. I'm going to click mine to single because that's what we would need at minimum. Come down to size. Remember, you want something that's around 640 by 480 or 480 by 640, whichever seems to work better. I've changed my settings a little bit here so that my creature is nice and framed. You can see here's my setting. You just want to make sure that this is framed well when it renders. And it might take some hit and miss in here to get the size right. Your pixel aspect can be 1. The image aspect can be the default. And your aperture width can be the default as well. And as we scoot down here, make sure all the check marks here are on that you want. The defaults are these first 3. I don't think you'll need any of the others, but if you are using anything else in your scene, make sure they're checked here. If you're using a global lighting, this will be checked. If you've used a skylight and you want to turn it off and it still seems like it's rendering but you're not using it, you turn it off here. You uncheck that. That way the skylight won't render and it won't take as long. But if you want your skylight to render or global illumination, it's right here. Under render output, we hit files. You'll choose where you want this to render to. Make sure your name is in the render. Last name would be best, just so that I don't get them confused with somebody else. You want to make sure you get credit. I would rather they be either BMPs, JPEGs, TGAs, or TIFFs. I don't really care which one in all that, because I'm not probably going to print them, but I would like something that's at least not a weird format that I would have trouble opening. I'll use a TIFF, and if I hit save at this point, you'll get your image control panel for whichever image you picked. Try to use as little compression as you can for whatever you want. Dots per inch can be 300 or 72. It really doesn't matter. If we want to use them for print later on down the road, it's easier for me to re-render them than it is for you to send me something huge. And now that path should be right here. And we would hit render at this point, and it would render our scene. It would save it to the location we just told it to save. If you want to make changes later, you can turn off save here, so it's no longer saving, and you can recheck it when you want it to save. You can change all your sizes, everything else here along the way, and you can save it to a different location, a different file format here. Okay, so that's for your rendering. And make sure I get the final thing here. Make sure your render is included with your max file and your scene pieces. It usually is best to, you'll get my attention that your creature is done by either emailing or posting the creature render and then I'll go find the max files and scene parts, and I'll let you know once I get everything. Don't send a giant email to me like 10 megabytes of your max file and creature renders, because it's probably going to take too long for me to download on this side, or it's not going to get to me at all. But once your creature is posted, either on the Game Institute forums or it's sent to me as an email attachment, just a render, then I'll ask for the max files. You can let me know where they're at, and I'll collect those. And once I have all those parts, if it meets the standard that we're after, then you will have passed the class as long as all the other stuff is done. So good luck with that. And I've included a few checklists for you just to make things easy. They're in the 10th week or the 10th section folder, and they have this little CL underscore next to them. We've got a scene maintenance one, which has all the information you'll need to make sure that your scene is set up properly to turn in. There's also environmental hints. Remember, your scene does not need an environment to be counted as final. This is only there in case you do have an environment. It has render hints, which we just went over. And the final one is your scene submission, and this tells you everything that you need to submit the final render. And you can see everything that we just went over is in there. That should get you everything that you need for your final turn-in, and hopefully that should get you a pretty good class, and we will be wrapping it up at that point. There is going to be another class after this one, so keep an eye out for it, and hopefully